As the new millennium dawned, the once industry-dominating World Championship Wrestling
Bischoff, damn it all!
was struggling to keep pace with their rival, the World Wrestling Federation.
You are looking at the next WWF champion, and that's the bottom line.
In many ways, WCW's fortunes and future hinged on one key event.
Bash at the Beach 2000. Candidly, one of the biggest disasters of my entire career.
Bash at the Beach was one of WCW's biggest annual pay-per-view events. And in the year 2000, it was the stage for an epic clash between two of wrestling's most controversial creative talents.
And I promise you will never see that piece of shit again!
I think Vince Russo is motivated by attention. I don't know why. I didn't know if he didn't get enough when he was a little kid.
Eric represented everything I despise in the wrestling business. And bro, I'll tell you, you're never gonna outwork me because I'm better than you.
If he believes that, he's got a problem with reality.
The incident at Bash at the Beach 2000 is one in which every participant has their own version of what actually took place that night.
And I said, Hulk, you're not walking out of here the WCW champion. That is not happening.
What's Jeff doing? Now the script's out the window. What's going to happen? And it's like, nobody wants to watch wrestling and see that. It was one of the dumbest things I ever saw.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
That was never my plan.
Now I'm really pissed off.
Hogan's pretty sensitive about being called bald, even though he doesn't have any hair.
Did I know that Hulk Hogan was going to take legal action? How could you not?
There will come a time, there will come a place when I will tell the entire story of what happened at Bash at the Beach.
The legacy of Bash at the Beach, the single biggest black eye in WCW history.
I despise the wrestling business, bro. I despise the people in it. You cannot be a good person and exist in the wrestling business. You can't, bro, because you enter a Shark Tank. And unless you become a shark, they will eat you alive. My name is Vince Russo. I was in the wrestling business since 1991, so I'm going on 32 years now.
You can boo all you want. That doesn't change the fact that I'm better than you. What I'm looking for tonight is ratings. Big ratings. And we're gonna deliver, you son of a bitch.
Vince, we've got to know, who is the WCW World's Heavyweight Champion?
Question? There is no question, Mike.
There's no question.
Who's here with the belt?
Overall, do you think Vince Russo has done more harm or good for wrestling?
Harm. Yeah, I would say long-term harm. Yeah.
In the 1990s, professional wrestling is bigger and hotter than it has ever been before, as industry leader Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Federation faces a serious challenge to its popularity by an aggressive challenger, billionaire Ted Turner's World Championship Wrestling.
WWF would have been the dominant company from '84 through, I would say, '96. And in '96 it flipped over and WCW was dominant. My name is Dave Meltzer and I'm the editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I've been covering pro wrestling since the early 1970s. The flaw of Vince McMahon is he only thinks a certain thing works. That's it. And there's a million things in wrestling that when done well can work.
As both companies engage in a fierce ratings war pitting their Monday night shows against each other, the rise of WCW is led by its ambitious young president, Eric Bischoff.
I decided the only way I was going to be successful was to be different. I listed all of the things that made WWE successful, and I decided to do exactly the opposite of what they were doing. I'm Eric Bischoff, former president of WCW. I'm the first one that created a weekly live television format for professional wrestling. I looked at the WWE and they were taped. And I thought, wrestling needs to be live. When it's live, the audience has to watch it. WCW, before Nitro, was just a really bad, cheap imitation of WWE. It was just silly, childish stuff.
The Shock Master! The Shock Master!
They were ignoring men 18 to 39. So I thought, okay, there's my opportunity. You know, I began wondering, how can I transition into more reality-based product?
Eric produced a different kind of a television show than had ever been done before. He was just ahead of the game, and Vince was behind the times.
Before launching Monday Nitro, Bischoff aims to legitimize WCW by headhunting major talent, poaching Vince McMahon's biggest star to be the new face of his company.
We're the #2 wrestling company in the world. We're a fraction of the WWE's ratings. And bringing in Hulk Hogan changed the perception of WCW. It was a seismic shift.
I mean, I remember Eric telling me, where Hogan goes the money. That was his thing.
And all of a sudden, my phone rings one day, and it's my buddy Diamond Dallas Page. And he said, Eric, you know, Scott Hall wants to leave WWE. He was Razor Ramon there. So I do the deal with Scott Hall, and about a week after that, I get a call from Kevin Nash. Same thing. Bam, the light bulb went off in my head. There's my storyline. There's my reality.
Here they come! They've got baseball bats in their hands!
The NWO, the New World Order.
Hook, hook, hook! What is he doing? Oh my God! Is he the third man? He's the third man! What the hell is going on here?
We left WWE in the dust. In the dust. We weren't just beating them, we were beating them badly.
But the WWF isn't down for the count, as fans eventually begin gravitating to a new generation of superstars and a radical new approach to wrestling storylines introduced by a brash young writer named Vince Russo.
Writing a wrestling show is not rocket science. And one of the things I said to Vince when I first sat down with him, Vince, that wrestling handbook gets thrown out the window. And I said, Vince, from now on, they think we're gonna go left, we're gonna go right. Now, all of a sudden, week to week to week, they don't know what's going to happen. The idea of Crash TV is I am writing that TV like the viewer at home is sitting there with the remote in his hand, begging me to give him the opportunity to see what was going on the other channel. So it would be short match, backstage segment, vignette, short match, fight in the locker room, vignette, boom, 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 and you are not giving that viewer the opportunity to, let's see what's on Nitro. That's Crash TV.
Russo's concept of Crash TV plays a key part in turning the tide, and soon the WWF is back on top, beating WCW every Monday night.
Towards probably the middle of '98, certainly in '99, that had reversed again. Now WWE was on top.
And that was a magical period. I don't want to dismiss Vince Russo's, contributions, but they had Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at the same time. And that's like, the Yankees with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. WCW, by the end of '99, they started losing money. They were the Titanic heading into the iceberg.
My budgets were becoming slashed. Eventually, I got let go in '99 because I was fighting that. I was struggling, I was fighting it.
Turner executives relieve Bischoff of his creative duties, while rumors emerge that Russo is overworked and frustrated in his role at the WWF.
Well, WWF added a second show, SmackDown, and did not give Vince Russo a raise, so they went from doing one show a week to 2 shows a week.
I went into Vince's office. I said, Vince, I want to be able to move my family closer to my wife's family, so my wife isn't alone and she has help raising the kids. Because Vince, I'm never home. And he turned around, bro, without missing a beat and said, you make enough money, you should be able to hire a nanny to take care of your kids. You don't tell a proud Italian man who loves his family to hire a nanny to watch his kids. Bro, at that moment, it was over. And they had me up to WCW that weekend.
I was shocked when WCW brought him in. It was a match made in heaven, or hell, depending on who you talk to.
I know I'm going into this thing with a target on my back. This is the first time I am going to be working with these veterans that have been at WCW for a long time. From day one, Hulk and Eric were like This, I can actually remember locking eyes with Hulk for the first time, and what I read from Hulk immediately was mistrust.
Vince Russo was smart enough to know that you couldn't build around Hulk Hogan anymore if you wanted a future. So, yes, I think he was trying to figure out a way to remove him because Hulk Hogan had so much power because he was Hulk Hogan.
And I've heard the critics ask the question, well, is Hulk Hogan getting older? Well, yeah, Hulk Hogan's getting older, and so is every other damn wrestler in the back, too, day by day.
So there was this narrative that Hulk Hogan couldn't wrestle in the ring anymore, he had no value, he should retire, blah, 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 blah. Where in reality, the business side of the wrestling business still thought very highly of Hulk Hogan.
Taking the reins of WCW in October of 1999, Russo begins reshaping and reimagining the company's flagship show, Monday Nitro.
Vince Russo believed, the more extreme and shocking you make it, the more they will like it.
We are just gonna hump you like the dogs that we are.
Sometimes that's right, but you also run into a thing where once you've done it, you desensitize the audience, and then there's nothing you can do.
Yeah! What's the worst thing that he's done, that you watched?
I don't know. I didn't watch this shit. I couldn't watch it.
I was there for 3 months. The ratings went up in those 3 months.
How are the ratings doing? Are they improving?
Well, he'll tell you that they were improving, but no, they weren't up. Artificially, it looked good, but every month, if you do the month rating, the October, the November, the December, every month was down slightly.
Next thing I know, management tells me we're going in a different direction. And I said, okay, fine, I'll go home, send me my money.
Now that both Bischoff and Russo have failed to turn WCW ratings around, the network lands on a new idea. Both men working together.
Brad Siegel is the head of TNT and TBS. Vince, I want you to meet somebody for lunch. I know immediately he's talking about Eric Bischoff.
And now my job is to oversee Vince Russo.
Between Vince and Eric, I never felt that there was a power struggle. My name's Jeff Jarrett. Some call me Double J, some call me the Last Outlaw.
1, 2, new champion!
I just think philosophically, those two guys view creating and producing wrestling content entirely different. A philosophical difference as opposed to a personality difference.
Is Last Storm officially in WCW now? Yes!
I negotiated my contract with both Vince Russo and Eric, and I much more preferred dealing with Eric. Russo was the creative end of it, and he was different. Vince Russo sat down with, all right, well, he's the guy that's going to be in charge of creative, and he's looking at me, and he's like, just off the top of my head, first thing I think of is like, maybe making you Eric's illegitimate son. And I look at Eric, and Eric has the same look on his face. What the hell? Isn't Eric 10 years older than me? How is he my illegitimate dad?
I did go into it with an open mind, and initially it was kind of fun. But it became apparent to me that Vince Russo is void of any creative instincts or talents.
You could not have put two of the most opposite people together and said, go.
With WCW in trouble, the company's survival hinges on reversing its downward spiral. Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo devise a storyline designed to play off the real-life backstage drama and the tensions between Bischoff's veterans and Russo's desire to push younger talent.
There's new sheriffs in town. The idea of the program was the Millionaires Club versus the young blood, where all these young guys that were held down, now they're going to get an opportunity to shine.
A little bit of a civil war, creatively speaking, between young and old, because that's part of life, right?
Get that damn camera out of here!
Despite their efforts, Bischoff and Russo's storyline fails to win over fans or improve the ratings.
Man, that whole year of 2000 is kind of blanked out of my mind because it was so bad.
It was destined for failure from the beginning.
Vince Russo, I was done with him creatively because I knew he was a bullshitter.
Eric wanted to be in charge. So I call Brad Siegel and I say, bro, put Eric in charge of the show. Brad Siegel said to me, no, Vince, we want you to write the show. Okay, fine. The next time I see Eric Bischoff, Bash at the Beach.
In the week leading up to the pay-per-view event, Russo prepares the show with a focus on who will emerge the next world champion.
That week, I walked into our creative meeting and I threw a question out there at the very beginning of the meeting. And the question was, if you could put the WCW title on anyone in the company right now, who would it be? And I went around the table, Booker T, Booker T, Booker T, and unanimously, everybody said Booker T. I said, well, then that's what we're gonna do.
I had had the belt at this time a couple of months, and so my overarching creative was for the chosen one, Jeff Jarrett, to face multiple legends and be victorious until it was time to switch the title to Booker T.
I'm gonna tell you like this here, we gonna turn this mother out, now can you dig it?
A lot of significance, a lot of upside, and I saw Vince Russo's vision and bought into it.
So the main event of the evening was Jeff Jarrett versus Booker T for the WCW title, with Booker T going over.
He's one of those guys where you knew he was really good. Wrestling had not been kind to African-American wrestlers. Give somebody else a chance, at least it's something new.
To add more intrigue to the event, Russo makes the decision to give Jeff Jarrett one last win before losing the belt to Booker T. A win over Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
When I wrote the very first version of the show, it was Jarrett against Hogan, and I wrote Hulk Hogan very strong. However, he was not going to win the WCW title. Why? Because you just had an entire room agree on Booker T.
Vince Russo had his idea what he wanted to do at Bash at the Beach. Hulk Hogan and I were on a completely different page. What Vince Russo wanted to do didn't freaking matter. Hulk Hogan had 100% creative control over his storyline and how his character was presented on television.
Back in 1994, Bischoff had lured Hogan to WCW by offering him one of the most generous contracts in wrestling history.
I think the technical wording was he had control of his finishes. It's like if he didn't want to lose, he didn't have to lose.
It's easy to sit here and say unprecedented, but to that date, someone with no ownership, but to have complete creative control, that is a conflict of interest. When a talent has creative control, it sort of comes down to the simplicity. Are they worried about their bottom line, or are they worried about the company's bottom line? It's radically different.
So I wrote the first script where Hulk Hogan looks very strong, but he does not win the WCW title. Hulk Hogan poo-pooed that first script. So now I rewrite the script and I really make Hulk Hogan look like King Kong. Not only does he wind up killing Jeff Jarrett, he winds up killing Scott Steiner. He literally winds up wiping everybody, but he does not leave with the title. Hulk says he's good with the second version. So now I walk into Bash at the Beach that Sunday thinking everything's fine and Hulk is gonna do what the second script says. Eric Bischoff comes up to me and says, you better go in the trailer and talk to Hulk Hogan because he's not gonna do this. Who's in the trailer? Me, Hulk Hogan, and Eric Bischoff. So if you want to break that down, it is clearly 2 against 1.
Did Vince Russo and I discuss it several times? Yes, we did. It was my job to oversee him. It was my call, not Vince Russo's call. He didn't get to vote. He thought he did, but he didn't.
Eric informs me that they came up with a scenario, and that scenario is Hulk winning the title. He wants to win the WCW title.
Eric's idea is to blur the line between reality and fiction with a story angle where Hulk flexes his creative control clause to win the belt as Jeff Jarrett throws the match in disgust. Hulk, angry at Jarrett's refusal to fight, is then scripted to storm out of the ring.
The idea was for Hulk to leave in a state of frustration and anger as a result of the finish of the match. The important element of it was that once WCW realized that Hulk Hogan wasn't coming back and he wasn't giving the belt back, that would force WCW to then vacate that title and create a tournament for a new World Heavyweight Champion. And finally, at Halloween Havoc, which was our big October pay-per-view, the two finalists in that tournament, before it physically took place, Hogan was going to make a surprise appearance and say, I still have the belt, and if you want this, you've got to beat me. Boom. There's your story.
I was pissed. Bro, you're pulling this bullshit the day of a show. I rewrote the show twice. This show's starting in an hour.
It got to the point where I said, look, we're going to get on the phone with Brad Siegel, and we're going to lay it out, and we'll let Brad choose. And Brad said, go with Eric's idea. That's it. Now you got the president of the network, who's the tiebreaker. It was over and done.
Eric wanted to be in charge. He wanted things to go back to the way they were. Bro, I'm not an idiot. So Hulk lays out this elaborate story, and I know the story ends with him winning the title. While he's laying out the story, this ear is listening. This side of my brain is figuring out another story because he's not walking out with the title.
Pay-per-view showtime starts at 8 o'clock, 7:30, somewhere in that window. Vince comes to me and says, bro, in his great New Yorker accent, this is what we're doing.
Jeff, Hulk doesn't want to do the job for you. F Hulk, lay down for him, let him leave with his freaking belt. We wanted everybody to believe it. Jeff was not in on it. We wanted everybody in the back to believe this. That was the goal.
Vince was pretty clear, go to the ring, we'll get the bell to start the match. Just make it very clear you're taking a dive. You're laying down for him. And I was dumbfounded. And I said, Vince, this story is not well thought out. It doesn't make any logical sense. And for a babyface to capture gold this way is a real bad taste that if a champion's going to be a champion, don't you really want to beat somebody? And this was the opposite of that. There's a million other options. I felt the audience would say, this is the best you guys could come up with? I told Vince this, everybody loses in this scenario. Everybody loses.
As Bash at the Beach 2000 begins, a storyline is in place for current WCW champion Jeff Jarrett to take a dive for Hulk Hogan. Everyone is ready to put the plan in motion until Jarrett begins having second thoughts.
When it came down to match time, I had a real overwhelming sense of, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be a part of this mess? Do I really want to walk the aisle and be a part of this finish? Those thoughts went through my mind because my father, my grandmother, my outlook on the industry, that you really only have one boss, and that's the fans.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the year 2000 WCW Bash at the Beach and the main event of the evening.
When they hit my music, I stayed in the back.
But where's Jarrett? I mean, his music's been playing for well over a minute. There's no sign of him. What's going on here?
This is not like the Chosen One to stand us up on a pay-per-view.
So my music played quite a while. I think it looped 2 or 3 times. And I stayed over in a little tunnel and really just thought through it. I could take matters into my own hands and say, I'm not doing the dive. I could, jumping and make him punch me around and make him give me a big boot. What are my real options? What is going to protect my family and my career best?
So much at stake here.
I can't say that I was legitimately angry. I can say thoroughly disgusted. And when I finally said, let's get this over with, that was where my head was at.
Here he is!
By the time I headed down the aisleway, everything in my mind was, Hogan, you want your creative control so bad, take it.
You know something, Jeff Jarrett? You are the chosen one because I have chosen you to powerbomb your ass through this match. So come on down and get your ass kicked, Jarrett.
Looking across the ring and looking at Hulk and knowing that he orchestrated all of this. I never, ever looked at him the same way.
What's Jeff doing? What's Jeff doing? Wait a minute, Russo, I think, told Jarrett to lie down. What's going on?
Look at Russo was holding the belt up like, do you want the belt? Pin the man. Jarrett's down. I don't know. And Hogan is as shocked as we are.
What in the world, Jeff Jarrett?
How does the crowd react when Jarrett lays down?
There's confusion, like they really don't know what's going on.
The essence of professional wrestling through the generations has been the ability to blur the lines between what's nonfiction and what's fiction. But the old promoter adage, you confuse them, you lose them. We confused them, and we lost them.
This can't be Jeff Jarrett, a man that grew up in this sport. What is going on? They just threw the world title into Hogan. What the hell? Now Russo.
I'll be honest with you, all I want to make sure is this plan carries out the exact same way I laid it out in the trailer. Jeff laid down, Hulk Hogan, you're going home with your belt. This is all part of the story.
Is this your deal, Russo?
Wow.
That's why this company's in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this.
Referee counted 1, 2, 3, and I rolled out to the ring and went straight to the back.
My God, this is real life. 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not something they go over with us at the production meeting. No, there are swerves and there are swerves. We've all been swerves.
And we went forward exactly the way Hulk wanted to go forward. The audience believed that Hulk Hogan was pissed, and he took the belt and he left the building. It went according to plan. We jump in the limo. We leave the arena with the belt. We go to the airport. We're on the plane. We're high-fiving, cracking a beer, laughing. Everything went the way we wanted to go.
As Bischoff and Hogan leave the arena, the show continues. But what happens next will be debated by fans and insiders for decades to come, as Russo takes matters into his own hands.
Well, here's Mr. Russo.
What the hell is next?
30 minutes later, the plane lands, and all of a sudden, Hogan's phone is blowing up. So is mine. Russo went out and cut the scathing promo and buried Hulk.
This was like their big, great swerve that somehow turned real when Russo does the promo later, and things end up getting worse.
There's only one way for me to do this, and that's for me to tell it like it is.
You know, bro, again, these are the things people hate me for.
As agreed upon before the show even started, and after Jeff Jarrett takes a dive, Hulk leaves the building with the belt, enraging and confusing the audience. Now, to the surprise of everyone, Vince Russo makes his way out to the ring.
Well, here's Mr. Russo.
What the hell is next?
Now what?
I don't know. Maybe Russo can explain to the world what we have seen.
My entire life, every promo I've ever cut,
there's only one way for me to do this, and that's for me to tell it like it is.
I don't know what I'm going to say. I am in the moment. That's real, and that's what people believe. Here's where the story is. Here's where my character is. Go.
Let me tell you people what happened out here in this ring tonight. All day long, I'm playing politics with Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan tonight wants to play his creative control card. And to Hulk Hogan, that meant that tonight in the middle of this ring, when he knew it was bullshit, he beats Jeff Jarrett.
Because of Russo's crazy booking style, we're all like, is this the plan? Are they working us? If this was the plan, it's stupid. And if it's not the plan, it's even stupider. We're all just in there going, what the hell is going on?
And let me tell you who doesn't give a shit about this company. That goddamn politician Hulk Hogan. Hogan got his belt and he went the hell home, and I promise everybody or else I'll go in the goddamn grave. You will never see that piece of shit again.
Adding to the confusion of the moment, Russo shocks the crowd by announcing a new main event.
Hulk Hogan now has the WCW belt. That belt don't mean shit. Jeff Jarrett is still the official WCW champion, and he will defend that title tonight in this ring against Booker T, who for 14 years has been busting his ass in WCW and can't get a goddamn break because of the Hulk Hogan.
There were real emotions being fueled during that promo because I had it up to here with the wrestling shit. I really did, bro. I was over and I was done with it.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
That was not on the format. That was not in the production meeting. That was nowhere to be found anywhere until this.
We do have Booker T now against Jeff Jarrett for the WCW title. That was just booked. That's added to tonight.
My plan for the main event, Booker T beats Jeff Jarrett and becomes the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. So Hogan, congratulations, enjoy the title. That's the fake title. The real title is going to be represented in the match with Jarrett. Booker goes over.
We've got a new champion! Oh my God, Booker T's the world champion! Booker T's the champ!
Oh my God, bro. I knew Hulk was going to be pissed. Everybody is believing this. 1,000%. And all I'm reading is Vince Russo finally put Hulk Hogan in his place. Vince Russo finally told Hulk Hogan what should have been said to him years ago. I'm reading this and I'm saying he is going to have a severe problem with it.
When Hulk gets really, really angry, he gets very quiet. Like, when he stops talking, that's when you need to start worrying. And he got real quiet after that. Like, real quiet.
Russo claims he pitched this entire storyline to Hulk and Eric in the trailer, and that they agreed.
Every single thing on that show was what was discussed in that trailer. Everything. From Jarrett laying down, to them leaving, to me cutting the promo, to Booker T winning the title at the end. It was exactly the way I laid it out to Hogan in the trailer.
That was never my plan. I guarantee you it wasn't Hulk Hogan's plan. And by the way, Hulk Hogan had creative control. And we certainly didn't know that Booker T was going to walk out as a world champion. Because Hulk Hogan had that world title and was going to bring it back in October at Halloween Havoc. That was the plan.
Oh my God, that was part of the plan. This is a key point. The reason you have to leave the building is because if I go out there and cut a scathing promo on you and you're still in the building, you're going to have to come kill me.
Russo may believe it, but that's where the pathological part of being a pathological liar comes in. None of that was discussed in advance. None of that was approved by me. None of it was approved by Hulk Hogan. It was just the most unprofessional thing that I'd ever seen in 30 years of television.
The next morning, a furious Hogan calls into a local Tampa radio show, airing his grievances, for real, at Vince Russo.
The reason Vince McMahon is home laughing his ass off is because of these jerk-offs like Vince Russo. That idiot went out there and told the people that he was responsible for me and Jarrett not having a match. He is a very stupid man. But now I'm really pissed off. I don't know how I'm going to get even with this Russo guy. They can pass that stupid-ass belt to Booker T, but I'm the real world's WCW champion.
Did you know Hulk was going to pursue legal action?
Ah! Did I know that Hulk Hogan was going to take legal action? How could you not? How could you not?
Infuriated by the events of Bash at the Beach, Hulk Hogan takes legal action against Vince Russo and WCW.
Because Hulk Hogan tonight wants to play his creative control card.
Hogan files lawsuits for defamation and breach of contract, asserting that Russo's off-script tirade was part of the match outcome and violated his creative control clause.
I believe Hogan felt double-crossed, and whether Russo actually double-crossed him or he just got carried away and said shit he shouldn't have, I have no idea, but it's like, okay, you don't file lawsuits if this is just part of a storyline.
It gets to a judge, and the judge basically says, let me get this straight. This is a wrestling show. Vince Russo is in a wrestling ring. He is cutting a promo on a wrestling character. Where is the defamation of character?
Like, Hulk, you're really suing over this? Shut up. I would not have been a good witness for that. Strange times.
I am cutting my promo on Hulk Hogan, not Terry Bollea. This is a story. Vince Russo is a character. Hulk Hogan is a character.
If Vince Russo takes the position that because he was performing as a character that took creative liberties with another professional, that somehow makes it legal and okay, is a reflection of the man's ignorance. He's got more than a problem with facts and truth. He's got a problem with reality.
And the first judge threw it out. They appealed it, and it went to a second judge.
First of all, I don't think that it went to multiple courts to begin with. It's not like they took it to the Supreme Court, for crying out loud.
The sworn depositions reveal a key piece of information that 2 days prior to Bash at the Beach, a fax was sent to the WCW head office.
I found out after the WCW office is closed, Hulk Hogan's attorney faxes a letter to the WCW office saying Hulk Hogan is not approving that script. I have no idea of this.
Here's why that doesn't hold up. It was never a discussion or a debate between Hulk and me and Russo as to whether or not we were going to do something other than what Hulk and I had laid out. It wasn't up for debate, therefore why would there be this after-hours fax excuse?
I mean, I'm trying to decide between two dishonest people discussing something from 20 years ago to do with the fax. Yeah, I don't remember a fax, but, you know, I never heard the fax story. I'll just say that.
The fax exposes Hulk Hogan's real intentions to maximize the full strength of his creative control and refuse any storyline Russo proposed. Russo triumphs in the courtroom as an appeals court affirms that fictional characters cannot be defamed. However, it's Hogan who emerges victorious in his battle against WCW.
Hulk made the decision the night of Bash at the Beach that I probably will not get renewed, so how can I get another paycheck from AOL Time Warner? And that's through litigation.
I'm trying to get out of my contract with these guys, and Brad Siegel's real snug about not letting me out of the contract, but that's all I got to say.
Well, Hulk Hogan was a key to building the company, and he obviously had the biggest name, but nothing is forever, and he'd been there too long, and he became the face of failure. So at that point, he was getting paid so much, but he couldn't draw ratings to a great degree anymore, and people weren't going to go and pay to see Hulk Hogan matches that they'd seen for all those years. There was really nothing left to do with him.
And then you have scumbags like Dave Meltzer, who is nothing more than a useful idiot. Even though he calls himself a journalist, Dave Meltzer to this day hates Hulk Hogan.
What Hulk Hogan was trying to achieve that night remains clouded in uncertainty.
You know, I've asked myself that through the years. What was Hogan's vision? What was the upside? What was the ultimate plan? Was it to create so much controversy or to get eyeballs on the product? Was it to be his version of a Montreal screw job or his version of a publicity stunt? I don't know. We certainly know the results of it, but I have no idea what his vision was.
And Turner settled. I mean, this is fun because I sat with Hulk and his attorney, Henry Holmes, the day that they settled that. They took me out to dinner and told me what happened. They never gave me the amount. That was confidential. But I know it was well into seven figures.
Some folks play chess while others are playing checkers. The night at Bash at the Beach, Hulk decided to start playing chess, and he had the patience, and he cashed out.
What's Jeff doing? Russo, I think, told Jarrett to lie down. What's going on?
The facts of what actually went down at Bash at the Beach 2000 will forever be murky. But what was clear to fans that night was that the chaos and confusion only underscored the disorder and disintegration at the heart of the company.
It was the reality the night this happened, and it's the reality as I sit here today saying this, in a business that gave him everything, and that's what he gave back. It's about the most self-centered, egotistical power play move that only benefited Hulk. And that's the reality.
But I mean, as far as a storyline based on what they were doing at the time, it was something that would get people talking and could have built to something. So I did like Booker T being champion. I thought that was cool. You know, it's not same old Hulk Hogan champion, right? So I guess I did like that. I do remember that, you know, thinking, at least it's something new.
And let me tell you who doesn't give a shit about this company. That goddamn politician Hulk Hogan.
It was destined for failure from the beginning.
At the end of it all, I don't think the Bash at the Beach was the nail in the coffin for WCW.
You see what it says right here? This is my ass, if you will.
You know what I mean? It was like the gig was already up. It was just kind of a flattering company. WCW was a star that became a supernova and then burned itself out.
In its dying days, WCW is snapped up by its longtime arch-rival Vince McMahon and the WWF. Despite having an attractive offer on the table from a venture capital firm spearheaded by Eric Bischoff.
The deal for us to purchase WCW is for $67 million. We buy all the assets and we get placement on Monday nights and Thursday nights. That was our deal. And I got a phone call. They said, Eric, it's done. I thought he meant the deal was done. Like, we own a wrestling company. I'm about ready to jump up and start dancing. I said, you mean it's done? He goes, no, Eric, you don't get it. It's over. There's no deal. Turner took it off the table. It took a minute for that to sink in.
It was a fire sale at the end. Time Warner wanted to get rid of wrestling. I mean, it was like $2.5 million for the actual WCW, and I think that there's $1.7 million more for the tape library. It was definitely the equivalent of, buying Manhattan for $25.
That's right. I own WCW.
I have zero regrets, man. I have zero regrets. Regret to me is a negative thing. It's like baggage. I try not to carry any baggage with me at all.
I have said this about Vince Russo. Vince is a guy who's very passionate, like a lot of us, and does what he thinks the viewer wants to watch. And he's had successes, and he's had failures, like all of us.
Do you know how little this shit matters? It is a form of entertainment at the end of the day. I don't hate any of these people, bro. This was a job. People ask me all the time today, Vince, what is your advice to get into the wrestling business? And I tell them, don't.
Confession. As the devastating news rippled through the community, and most agonizingly within Pamela Britt's immediate family, the search for answers turned inward, sifting through the complexities of her personal life. Grief, coupled with a desperate need for comprehension, often cast familiar narratives in a new, ominous light. It was in this painful crucible of sorrow and speculation that the victim's loved ones suspect a love triangle was involved. This age-old human drama, with its potent ingredients of passion, jealousy, and betrayal, presented itself as an all-too-plausible motive, a chilling and historically accurate backdrop for such a violent crime. The theory, however painful to contemplate, provided an immediate, albeit vague, framework within which the unimaginable could begin to be processed. Pamela's daughter, in a raw and vulnerable outpouring of grief, offered profoundly poignant and perhaps retrospectively heartbreaking insight into her mother's romantic journey. Her candid confession painted a picture of a woman whose enduring optimism and love often collided with the harsh realities of unsuitable partners. My mother had the worst taste in men. She just kind of kept that pattern pretty much all of our life. This statement, uttered with both love and a weary familiarity, was not a judgment, but an honest observation, a recognition that Pam, in her perpetual search for companionship, had sometimes found herself entangled in relationships that were less than ideal, inadvertently making her vulnerable to unforeseen dangers. This pattern, consistently woven throughout her adult life, now loomed ominously large as a potential contributing factor to her tragic fate. The threads of her past, once simply life's choices, began to unravel into a tragic design. Indeed, as the painstaking investigation methodically began to peel back the layers of Pamela's recent romantic life, the family's intuition began to solidify into a chilling, tangible reality. The evidence, painstakingly gathered and analyzed, inexorably led to the revelation of a romantic rival, a figure whose obsessive fixation on David Scribner, Pam's current boyfriend, had tragically escalated to murderous intent. This individual, blinded by a destructive and unyielding desire, was tragically willing to snuff out the competition by any means necessary. The very notion of a competitor, a perceived obstacle in her path to a man who clearly wished for no part of her, had driven her to the darkest extreme of human malevolence. The psychology of this rival was quickly revealed as deeply disturbed, a mind consumed by a singular, malignant force that warped her perception of reality. She was obsessed, a simple yet profoundly unsettling description that hinted at the depths of her pathology. This was not merely jealousy. It was an all-encompassing, destructive fixation that obliterated all reason, all empathy. Her desperation knew no bounds, manifesting in bizarre and unsettling ways, including a reliance on the shadowy realm of folk magic and manipulation, a witness grappling with the sheer audacity of her attempts to control the will of others. Recounted with a sense of morbid bewilderment, she put your bowels on them to try to split them up. This chilling revelation spoke not only to her desperate attempts at manipulation, but also to a mind steeped in a perverse, dark blend of control, superstition, and a complete disregard for others' agency. In the culturally rich and sometimes mystically inclined landscape of rural Mississippi, where echoes of old beliefs still subtly intertwine with modern life, a seasoned investigator offered a darkly witty, yet acutely insightful, observation that perfectly captured the peculiar flavor of such malicious intent. It was a statement that subtly pointed to the irrational undercurrents that can sometimes fuel the most heinous of crimes, where superstition is twisted to justify horrific actions. I can't have a murder in the state of Mississippi without a little do-do or hoodoo in it. This wry quip, while delivering a touch of macabre humor, underscored the very real influence that such irrational beliefs can exert on deeply disturbed minds, particularly when intertwined with intense emotional distress and an obsessive, unrequited desire. This peculiar blend of primitive malice and calculated premeditation painted a truly horrifying portrait of the perpetrator, illuminating the destructive potential when the mundane turns monstrous. This individual, meticulously driven by her escalating obsession, did not leave the trajectory of her malevolent plan to chance. Instead, she embarked upon a terrifying and calculated course of action, orchestrating a complex web of deceit and cruelty that culminated in a week of destruction in her path. This was not a crime of impulsive rage, but a chilling testament to meticulous planning and ruthless execution, designed to not only eliminate her perceived rival, but also to deliberately mislead justice. A central pillar of her wicked design was the cold-blooded creation of a scapegoat, an innocent party upon whom she intended to heap the full weight of her monstrous crime. One of the individuals targeted for this vile frame-up, speaking with a profound mix of horror and relief at her eventual exoneration, revealed the perpetrator's insidious intent. I was going to be her perfect scapegoat. This demonstrated a chilling level of strategic malice, a calculated willingness to destroy another life to evade accountability for her own. The sheer duration of her nefarious preparations, the methodical, unwavering determination that marked her planning for 9 months, left no room for any narrative of remorse or spontaneity. As a shrewd observer of the human criminal mind succinctly stated, articulating the stark distinction between genuine regret and opportunistic self-preservation, anybody that goes 9 months planning somebody's murder, it's not sorry. This powerful declaration stripped away any illusion of contrition, exposing the cold, unfeeling core of a heart devoid of empathy. Her methodical cruelty and strategic deception revealed a mind consumed not by fleeting anger, but by a deep-seated, calculating evil. Yet, despite the undeniable evidence of her calculating cruelty and profound lack of remorse, the perpetrator, a true architect of her own destruction, would later resort to a classic, if transparent, maneuver of criminal psychology, faced with the harsh, unflattering mirror of her own deeds and the righteous condemnation of society. She would make a desperate, almost pathetic, attempt to mitigate her monstrous image. "I just don't want people to think I'm this monster," she would insist, her words a fragile, self-serving plea to detach herself from the terrifying reality of her actions. This desperate utterance, however, rang hollow, a transparent facade unable to conceal the horrifying truth of her premeditated violence against Pamela Britt. It was a typical, almost predictable defense of a narcissist caught in the act, an individual utterly incapable of reconciling their carefully constructed self-image with the stark, brutal reality of the suffering they had inflicted. Her lament, devoid of genuine accountability, served only to underscore a profound chasm between her twisted self-perception and the undeniable evidence of her monstrous deeds, forever etching her as a true architect of evil in the tragic story of Pamela Britt. The quiet dawn of Tuesday, the 11th of February, in the year 2020, held no portent of the horror it would bring to Baldwin, Mississippi. For Trent and Stephanie Rogers, the diligent owners of the local grocery store, the day unfolded with a familiar rhythm of commerce and community connection. Just another busy Tuesday morning. Their establishment was not merely a place of transaction. It was a hub, a vital artery in the small-town heart of Baldwin, where faces were known and relationships fostered. Among their trusted employees was Pamela Britt, a woman whose 63 years of life radiated warmth, dedication, and a deep sense of familial devotion. She was, as the local parlance suggests, a true people person, well-liked and respected by all who had the pleasure of knowing her. On this particular morning, however, the day's ordinary demands were met with a human vulnerability. Pamela isn't feeling well. In a gesture of genuine concern and practical understanding, Trent and Stephanie, demonstrating the thoughtful care often characteristic of small-town employers, suggested she take a break. Stephanie, recalling the conversation, recounted Pam's own, seemingly mundane, explanation for her malaise. She thought her blood pressure was messed up, and she was going to go home and maybe see if she could just take a nap and rest a minute. It was a moment steeped in ordinary life, a simple decision to seek respite, utterly devoid of any premonition of the cataclysmic events poised to unfold. A stark and chilling contrast to the horrific reality awaiting her in her own garage. As the morning progressed, the initial concern for Pamela Britt, though mild, began to subtly intensify. Time, that relentless and indifferent arbiter, continued its inexorable march, and when more than an hour passes without hearing from Pam, they begin to get worried. This was not merely a fleeting thought. It was a slow, creeping unease, growing heavier with each passing minute. Stephanie, keenly aware of Pamela's diligent nature and unwavering professionalism, was the first to vocalize this gathering apprehension. Around 12 o'clock, 12:05, Stephanie had told me, Pam didn't make it back. Her voice, undoubtedly imbued with an unspoken tension, signaled to Trent that something was profoundly amiss. Pamela Britt was not one to deviate from routine or to leave her employers uninformed. That's not like Pam. She'd come up and talk to me and ask if I would call her, and I tried to call her, and I couldn't get an answer. The silence on the other end of the line was not merely an unanswered call. It was a resounding void where the familiar comfort of Pamela's voice should have been, a terrifying premonition for those who knew her well. The mundane concerns of grocery store business were rapidly transforming into a profound and chilling personal dread. The escalating unease culminated in a moment of shared apprehension and decisive action between Trent and Stephanie. Trent, sensing the deepening gravity of the situation, turned to his wife for confirmation of his own burgeoning fears. Trent said, "What do you think I need to do?" His question, laced with genuine worry, was met with Stephanie's immediate and firm counsel. I said, "I don't feel good about it. I think you should go check on her." Her words carried the weight of a premonition, urging direct intervention. The practicalities of the situation only lent urgency to her advice. Since Pam lives only a few minutes away, the short distance within their tight-knit community, making a personal visit a logical, indeed, imperative course of action. With a shared glance that communicated their mutual concern, they decide to pay her a visit. What began as a simple errand of goodwill, a neighborly checkup, was now poised to become a journey into a horrifying unknown, a descent from mundane concern into a profound, life-altering tragedy that would irrevocably shatter the peace of their quiet Mississippi town. Trent's short drive to Pamela Britt's home, typically a routine journey through the familiar streets of Baldwin, was imbued with a steadily deepening sense of foreboding. As he pulled up to the residence, an unnatural stillness permeated the air, a silent incongruity that immediately heightened his apprehension. I go to the house and I get out and look around. His initial visual survey of the property, a quick glance for any obvious signs of life or unusual activity, yielded nothing but an unsettling quiet. I knock on the door, and then I didn't get an answer. Each unanswered knock, a polite yet increasingly urgent summons, intensified his mounting worry, transforming polite concern into an insistent, fearful search. His profound sense of unease propelled him to further action, demonstrating a resourcefulness born of mounting anxiety. And then I decided I was in check and see if maybe there was a door unlocked. This simple, innocent act, driven purely by his genuine concern for Pamela's well-being, was destined to lead him into a horrifying encounter, an unexpected and chilling intrusion into the ordinary fabric of his day. As Trent circled the back of the house, his singular focus still fixed on locating Pamela, a profound shock awaited him. What should have been a quiet, unobstructed inspection of a rear door turned into a jarring, utterly unexpected confrontation. I get to the back of the house to open the door, and there was a lady there that opened the door. The suddenness of this encounter, the unexpected appearance of an unknown figure within Pamela's private domain, sent a jolt through Trent. To Trent's surprise, it's a woman he doesn't recognize from their small town. In Baldwin, a community where faces were as familiar as one's own reflection, a stranger's presence in such a context was a glaring anomaly, a seismic shift in the emotional landscape of the moment. Her attire, too, was striking in its deliberate, almost theatrical darkness, painting a picture that instantly triggered a deep, primal sense of unease. The lady was wearing all black. She had black pants, black shirt, and she had a black coat with a hood on it, and she was wearing a black headband. This stark, monochrome ensemble seemed not just a fashion choice, but a uniform of stealth and shadow, an overt attempt to blend into anonymity, or perhaps to project an air of foreboding. Beyond her clothing, her physical state visibly betrayed profound distress, further intensifying Trent's disquiet. She was real pale and she was sweaty. It looked like she had been doing a lot of work. Every detail, from her somber garb to her visible agitation, converged to ignite Trent's deepest instincts. I just know something's not right, he thought, the silent alarm bells within him ringing with piercing clarity. His routine welfare check had just metamorphosed into a chilling, face-to-face encounter with a perpetrator, transforming his Tuesday into a waking nightmare. The profound sense of anomaly regarding the mysterious woman's presence was magnified exponentially by Trent's intimate knowledge of his community and Pamela Britt's established habits. Since Pamela lives so close to the store, Trent possessed not only an acute awareness of the daily ebb and flow of activity around her residence, but also maintained a casual familiarity with most people in town. This made the woman a complete enigma to him, a glaring, unsettling incongruity. This woman, however, appears to be a total stranger. Her unfamiliarity, coupled with her disconcerting appearance and the undeniable fact of her presence within Pamela's private sphere, immediately triggered a deep, pervasive sense of discord that Trent could not possibly ignore. It was a glaring red flag waving furiously in the quiet air of Baldwin, driven by a mounting concern for Pamela's safety and a desperate need for clarification in the face of such profound strangeness. Trent directly addressed the mysterious woman. I asked her where Pam was at, and she said that Pam doesn't live here. The brazenness of this lie, delivered by a woman clearly associated with the home, was not only astonishing but deeply unsettling. For a fleeting, disorienting moment, caught off guard by the sheer audacity of her assertion, Trent found himself questioning his own memory, his certainty momentarily wavering under the weight of such an unambiguous denial. At first, I thought I had the wrong house, and I called Stephanie and asked her if that was a house that I was supposed to be at. This swift, pragmatic act of checking in with Stephanie served to anchor him back to the grim reality, providing crucial confirmation. He described the house and the location, and I said, yes, that is where she's living now. The definitive affirmation from Stephanie, solidifying his knowledge that he was indeed at Pamela's current address, juxtaposed with the stranger's bald-faced lie, propelled Trent beyond mere suspicion and into the chilling, unshakable certainty that something profoundly evil and violent had indeed transpired within those walls. The welfare check had taken a truly horrifying turn. Stephanie, upon receiving Trent's urgent and bewildering phone call, her voice undoubtedly laced with palpable alarm as he described the encounter with the stranger, found her own thoughts spiraling into a vortex of confusion and mounting dread. My mind was just racing. The disjointed narrative, a woman unknown to their small town, dressed in ominous black, inexplicably present in Pam's home, and brazenly denying Pam's residency, created a horrifying mental puzzle. I really didn't know what was going on. I was trying to put all together. The weight of uncertainty was suffocating, yet beneath the swirling confusion, an undeniable, urgent instinct took fierce hold, overriding all rational thought. I just knew I just had to get there. Her deep concern for Pam, now morphing into stark, icy fear, demanded her physical presence at the scene, compelled her to rush towards the unknown. Her drive was fueled by a terrifying urgency, her mind a maelstrom of fear and unanswered questions. As she arrived, the palpable tension radiating from the scene left no room for hesitation. When I drove up, I immediately take my phone out, and I dial 911. I give them the address. This decisive action, swift and unhesitating, marked a critical turning point. The crisis, now fully recognized as an emergency far beyond a simple welfare check, had been brought to the direct attention of professional law enforcement, ensuring that the full force of police and emergency services would soon converge upon the scene. The tranquil Tuesday morning had irrevocably dissolved into a chilling drama, a desperate summons for aid amidst an unfolding tragedy that promised to forever alter the lives of everyone involved. In the pivotal minutes immediately following Stephanie's urgent distress call to emergency services, the mysterious woman who had so brazenly confronted Trent initiated a desperate and profoundly revealing maneuver, as if sensing the tightening noose of impending law enforcement presence. The woman in black leaves the house and begins walking up the road, her gait undoubtedly betraying a subtle yet discernible attempt to casually, yet definitively, distance herself from the grim scene she left behind. Trent, his instincts now on high alert and his focus keenly fixed, became her shadow. Subtly but tenaciously follows her, a testament to his mounting suspicion and quiet courage in the face of an unfolding crisis. This pursuit was not just physical. It was a silent, psychological battle of wills. The arrival of responding Officer Nicola Ward, a dedicated member of the local police department, coincided with Trent's cautious tailing of the enigmatic figure. The sight of a uniformed officer, the imminent presence of official authority, served as an undeniable catalyst, shattering the woman's fragile veneer of composed nonchalance. The woman suddenly flees into a nearby field. Her sudden, desperate dash for freedom, a stark and unambiguous act of flight, immediately transformed her from a suspicious presence into a definitive suspect. This unhesitating attempt to escape spoke volumes, betraying profound awareness of culpability, a guilt that her very actions now confirmed louder than any verbal admission. Officer Ward, a trained professional, immediately grasped the gravity of the unfolding drama. I saw Trent, and Trent was pointing the field, and I saw a suspect down there. The pieces clicked into place with chilling rapidity for the experienced officer. The transition from keen observation to determined pursuit was seamless and instinctive for Officer Ward. I pulled up, got out of my car, and went down the hill. Her actions were swift, efficient, and methodical, embodying the disciplined response of law enforcement. I was attempting to get her to stop. Officer Ward's verbal commands, initially clear and direct, articulated her authority and her intent. I notified I'm Officer Ward with the police department. I need to speak with you. Stop. But she continued to walk, her defiance clear, her pace unyielding. The commands escalated, Officer Ward's voice hardening with a purposeful urgency, reflecting the gravity of the situation. I told her to stop again in a pretty hefty voice, and she started to pick up speed. The foot chase had officially begun, a jarring spectacle unfolding against the backdrop of Baldwin's placid, rural landscape, a desperate bid for escape pitting the unknown suspect against a determined pursuit of justice. I had to kind of run a little bit to catch up with her. As Officer Ward closed the physical distance, her voice cutting through the quiet morning with increasing force, demanding compliance, the woman uttered a peculiar, unprompted declaration, a statement that profoundly resonated with the officer's professional intuition. I was getting closer, and I told her to stop, and she just said, "I didn't do anything." This automatic denial, conspicuously offered without any prior specific accusation or inquiry about a particular event, immediately registered as a potent red flag in Officer Ward's trained mind. Such an unsolicited protestation of innocence is often a classic psychological tell, an ingrained, defensive reaction from someone who harbors deep guilt. You kind of get that gut when somebody automatically tells you, "You didn't do anything. Something happened." Officer Ward explained, articulating the acute, trained understanding that such a spontaneous defense almost invariably signals an underlying truth of culpability rather than a clear conscience. The pursuit, both physical and psychological, reached its swift, decisive conclusion. So I just took her down. The mysterious woman her flight thwarted was now safely, albeit uncooperatively, in custody. Yet the ominous questions surrounding her true identity, and, more terrifyingly, her connection to Pamela Britt's welfare, still hung heavy and unanswered in the crisp morning air, patiently awaiting the methodical uncovering of the grim truth. The long, painstaking path toward justice for Pamela Britt had begun. With a mysterious woman now physically restrained and her desperate flight thwarted, the immediate operational focus of the officers shifted from pursuit to control, security, and a methodical gathering of preliminary information. In such volatile and uncertain circumstances, safety protocols were paramount. I wasn't for sure she had any weapons on her or anything, an officer reflected, underscoring the inherent dangers and unknown elements presented by an uncooperative, unidentified suspect. Attempts to extract even the most basic identifying details or simple explanation for her presence proved futile. The woman, clad in her enigmatic black attire, maintained a wall of unwavering, frustrating silence. I tried to ask her who she was. She wouldn't say anything. I asked her why she was there. She wouldn't say anything. Her resolute refusal to communicate, her stoic, defiant silence, while deeply frustrating to the officers, spoke volumes. It transformed her enigmatic presence into a profound, unspoken confession of sinister intent, suggesting a chilling determination to withhold the truth and evade accountability. This unyielding silence, rather than suggesting confusion or fear, began to solidify the officers' suspicion that they had apprehended someone directly linked to a heinous crime. In light of the woman's obstinate refusal to cooperate, a strategic decision was made regarding resource allocation. One officer remained steadfastly with the detained woman, a silent sentinel ensuring her continued custody and preventing any further attempt at escape or self-harm, while the other officer, accompanied by Trent and Stephanie, made their way back to the increasingly suspicious residence. Upon their return to Pamela's house, a sense of grave formality dictated their actions. We did not make entry into the house at that particular point in time. The door was locked. Adhering to proper procedural protocols, even amidst overwhelming urgency, was crucial for preserving the integrity of any potential crime scene and ensuring the lawful collection of evidence. However, Trent, whose profound concern for Pamela had now mutated into a gut-wrenching certainty of impending tragedy, broke through the bureaucratic formality with an insistent, desperate plea for immediate action. His voice, undoubtedly charged with profound urgency and a sense of growing horror, cut through the quiet protocols. Trent tells him we need to get in this house, his words conveying the absolute, non-negotiable imperative to breach the locked door and ascertain Pamela's fate. His unyielding persistence, his refusal to be placated by standard procedure, ultimately spurred the decisive entry into the residence, a crucial pivot point that would lead to a discovery as devastating as it was expected. The horrifying culmination of their worst fears, the brutal, tragic answer to their unspoken questions, awaited them not within the main living quarters, but in the quiet, utilitarian confines of Pamela's garage. We eventually end up finding Pam in the garage. The scene was tragic in its finality, yet it initially presented a confusing picture to those who first beheld it. She had her keys in her hand. Her purse was sitting on the first step, and she wasn't breathing. She didn't have a pulse. These observations, when isolated, might have suggested a sudden, cruel twist of fate, a medical emergency taking a beloved grandmother without warning. It just looked very natural, like she just had some sort of medical episode and just fell over dead. The body appeared to be largely undisturbed. No overt signs of struggle immediately apparent to the untrained eye, giving a misleading impression of a peaceful, if untimely, passing. But this initial, superficial assessment, this fleeting and deceptive comfort of a natural demise, was swiftly and brutally shattered by the undeniable reality of the mysterious woman's actions, her jarring presence, her frantic flight, her profound, guilty silence. But the mystery woman's presence suggests another scenario. The glaring incongruity of a stranger, dressed in the somber cloak of black, emerging from a home where a beloved grandmother now lay lifeless, irrevocably shifted the narrative from tragic accident to deliberate malice. I know that somebody dressed all in black coming out of someone else's house shouldn't be. Happening. The instinctive recoil from such profound anomaly immediately transformed perception of the scene. And then it was like, we got to figure out, why is this happening? The question was no longer something nefarious had occurred, but rather why, and more importantly, who had perpetrated such an unimaginable act. The serene rhythm of Baldwin had been irrevocably broken, replaced by the chilling, demanding urgency of full-scale murder investigation, its genesis rooted in the brutal, senseless death of Pamela Britt. The shadow of evil had undeniably fallen upon their quiet community, and its source had to be identified, understood, and meticulously brought to justice. Pamela Britt's life story, spanning 63 years, commenced in the year 1957 in the nearby city of West Point, Mississippi. Her roots were firmly planted in the rich soil of the South, shaping her character and her journey through life. Baldwin, the small, tight-knit town she had chosen for her later years, had warmly embraced her, a testament to her affable nature and deep community ties. Here, she was more than just an individual. She was a familiar face to everyone, including police, a cherished part of the town's very fabric, solidifying the communal shock and sorrow her death would evoke. Her early life unfolded within the bustling, formative environment of a large family. My mother had 4 brothers and 1 sister. She was a middle child, her daughter fondly recounted, painting a picture of a household teeming with activity and familial bonds. Pamela's journey into adulthood began swiftly, a reflection of the societal norms and expectations of her era. My mother pretty much stayed in West Point until about 16 years old. She married my father. The bloom of youthful love led to an early, profound commitment, and with it, the swift responsibilities of motherhood. And she got pregnant with me when she was 17, and then had me a month after she turned 18. While her heart was full of hope, this initial marital chapter, common for many young couples, proved to be relatively brief. I don't think they were married maybe a year. Such youthful unions, though sometimes ephemeral, often forge resilience and a deeper understanding of life's intricate complexities, qualities that Pamela would draw upon throughout her life's subsequent chapters. Despite the early dissolution of her first marriage, Pamela Britt possessed an unyielding, optimistic spirit, particularly when it came to matters of the heart. Although her first marriage failed, Pam didn't give up on love. This unwavering belief in the possibility of companionship and happiness propelled her forward, a testament to her inner strength and enduring romantic spirit. Her subsequent years were characterized by a continuous, earnest search for her Mr. Right, a quest that saw her gracefully floating in and out of relationships for many years. Each connection, whether fleeting or substantial, was a testament to her hopeful heart and her deep desire for a lasting partnership. A significant chapter in her romantic and family life unfolded when her children were still young. When I was about 10 years old, she met my brother and sister's father. They stayed together probably about 5 years maybe. This relationship, though eventually concluding, marked a crucial period in her children's upbringing, shaping their early memories and experiences. Following their separation, Pamela, ever focused on her children's well-being and stability, made another significant move, reshaping their immediate environment. We moved after they separated. Me and my brother and sister grew up in Nettleton. We had a good childhood. Despite the inevitable challenges she faced as a single parent navigating her own romantic path, her dedication to her offspring was absolute and unwavering. She did what she could to support us. This fierce commitment to her family, a defining characteristic of her life, underscored her innate goodness and her selfless devotion, embodying the true spirit of a loving mother. As her children matured, spreading their wings to forge their own independent lives and begin their own families, Pamela embarked upon a new, hopeful chapter in 2018. She made a deliberate and joyous choice to move to Baldwin, a significant relocation driven by a profound desire to be closer to her daughters and make a fresh start. This move symbolized a yearning for renewed connection, for a purposeful existence nestled within the loving embrace of her extended family. In Baldwin, she swiftly found fulfilling employment at the Rogers grocery store, a familiar professional environment that perfectly suited her innate abilities and extensive background in retail. I met Pam through her daughter, Robin. I knew she had a background in working at grocery stores, convenience stores, retail stores. That's all she had done her whole life. Her vast experience and inherent capacity for genuine human connection made her an invaluable asset to the store and swiftly transformed her into a cherished figure within the community. Pam could just relate to anybody. She was just a people person. This remarkable quality, her warmth, accessibility, and genuine interest in others, defined her daily interactions, solidifying her status as a beloved fixture in Baldwin, a woman whose friendly smile and kind words were a source of comfort to many. Beyond her dedicated work and her rekindled connection with her adult daughters, Pamela Britt's heart found its deepest wellspring of joy and boundless fulfillment in her cherished role as a grandmother. Her 7 grandchildren were, unequivocally, the best thing to her in the world, radiating a light that imbued her later years with profound purpose, boundless love, and an infectious happiness. She was not a distant, idealized figure, but an actively engaged, nurturing presence in their daily lives, deeply embedded in their upbringing. She pretty much helped raise my kids with me. She had them all the time. They were always at her house on the weekends. They loved going over there. Her home, a vibrant hub of youthful energy and unconditional affection, became a cherished haven, a place where laughter echoed and precious memories were constantly being forged, a testament to the deep love she poured into her beloved family. It was amidst this rich and fulfilling period of her life, characterized by family, work, and community, that Pamela, ever the hopeful romantic, welcomed a new romantic interest into her world. In 2018, she began dating David Scribner, a 45-year-old man who appeared to bring a fresh spark of happiness and companionship to her life. Her daughter, observing this new relationship, initially offered a positive, albeit somewhat reserved, assessment. My mother told me he was a good guy. She didn't really say much. It seemed Pamela, having established a comfortable rhythm in her independent life, was enjoying this new companionship with a quiet contentment, perhaps having finally found the stable, undemanding connection she sought. I can only remember having a few conversations with her about him during this whole time they were dating. She kind of was doing her own thing, had finally gotten a house, and was doing really good for herself. This observation was imbued with deep, personal happiness for her mother's well-being, for her apparent flourishing. I was happy about that. It painted a serene picture of Pamela, finally settled, thriving, and embracing a renewed sense of independence and joy, a vision that would tragically prove to be short-lived and brutally shattered. But this precious, hard-won contentment, this serene and hopeful chapter in Pamela Britt's life, had now been abruptly and mercilessly truncated. Her vibrant existence, once radiating with the quiet joy of familial love and cherished companionship, had been violently extinguished. Her body, tragically discovered in her own garage, bore witness to a narrative far darker and more malevolent than the peaceful life she had so diligently cultivated. The joyous future she had envisioned, filled with the laughter of her grandchildren and the quiet comfort of companionship, had come to an unspeakable, horrifying halt. In the somber stillness of Pamela's garage, the grim reality of her death had begun to sink in for the seasoned detectives. Their immediate task, steeped in a profound sense of gravity, was to meticulously dissect the scene, to extract every fragment of information that could unravel the narrative of her final, terrifying moments. Detectives take a closer look at the crime scene, their movements precise, their eyes keenly trained to detect anomalies amidst the mundane. The initial visual assessment, a crucial first step in any death investigation, revealed an absence of the most overt forms of violence. There's no obvious sign of any sort of blunt force trauma. There's no gunshot wounds that are apparent or anything like that. This preliminary observation was critically important. It immediately guided the investigation away from certain violent methodologies, narrowing the focus towards other, perhaps more insidious means of fatal assault, thereby commencing a complex forensic puzzle. However, as the forensic examination of Pamela's body deepened, the truth began to emerge. Chillingly detailed and subtle, yet profoundly damning physical evidence. These indelible marks spoke not of natural passing, but of a brutal and deliberate attack. What I didn't notice was marks on her wrist, where it looked like something thin had been tied around her wrist. This chilling observation provided undeniable proof of active restraint, suggesting a desperate struggle against a perpetrator determined to overpower her. Furthermore, another crucial piece of the puzzle surfaced during the meticulous inspection. She had what looked like some electrical burn marks on her chest. These small, yet deeply significant, wounds pointed unequivocally to the recent use of a taser, a weapon specifically designed to shock and incapacitate, thereby confirming the violent nature of the assault. The most damning piece of physical evidence, however, the one that definitively painted a horrifying picture of her ultimate demise, was tragically clear and painfully consistent with what Trent and Stephanie had already observed during their initial desperate discovery, and her lips and face were very blue, consistent with being without oxygen for some time. This unmistakable physiological sign, a telltale characteristic of asphyxiation, provided a conclusive and irrefutable cause of death. It confirmed the grim reality that Pamela Britt had been deliberately and ruthlessly deprived of the very air of life, bringing her existence to a brutal and premature end. So we had a pretty good idea that asphyxiation was a reason. A lead investigator concluded with a heavy heart, the scattered pieces of the macabre puzzle now horrifyingly beginning to coalesce into a coherent, undeniable narrative of premeditated murder. The next critical step in unraveling this grim mystery lay with the enigmatic woman, clad entirely in black, who had been apprehended fleeing the scene. Her presence was intrinsically, chillingly linked to Pamela's death, and her personal belongings were believed to hold the key to unlocking the how and why of the tragedy. She had been carrying a large multicolored handbag at the time of her detention, an item that, beneath its ordinary exterior, would soon prove to be a chilling repository of lethal instruments. Investigators, approaching with meticulous care and profound sense of professional duty, started going through what items the lady had in the bag, understanding with a chilling certainty that within its depths might lie the final, undeniable proof of her heinous crime and the detailed blueprint of her malevolent intent. What they meticulously unearthed from the seemingly innocuous depths of that bag was, indeed, beyond incriminating. A collection of commonplace items horrifyingly repurposed for the most nefarious of ends. The findings were stark, unambiguous, and terrifyingly coherent. There was a pretty stout plastic that you wrapped around a paddle of stuff to keep it from coming apart. It was a roll of that. This was no ordinary, household-grade plastic wrap. Its robust nature, its industrial strength, immediately suggested a deliberate, specialized use for restraint or sealing, far removed from any benign domestic purpose. The presence of the weapon that left it searing. Undeniable marks on Pam's chest provided irrefutable physical proof of the violent assault. A taser was also in her bag, but the macabre collection continued, each item adding another layer to the chilling tableau of the crime. There was a dark navy pillowcase and some plastic wrap and some zip ties. The chilling synergy of these seemingly disparate items, when taken together, painted a vivid, horrifying picture of the crime's execution. We figured the pillowcase was put over her head, and Sharon wrapped around her face where she could not breathe no more. The zip ties, consistent with the distinct ligature marks meticulously observed on Pamela's wrists, completed the terrifying narrative of restraint and suffocation. This collection of repurposed everyday objects discovered within the suspect's possession not only confirmed the methods of murder, but also unequivocally underscored the premeditated and calculating nature of the attack, leaving absolutely no room for doubt as to the perpetrator's malicious intent. With the victim now unequivocally identified, the harrowing cause of death firmly established by forensic evidence, and the very instruments of the murder uncovered and linked directly to the apprehended suspect, the immediate, paramount objective for law enforcement crystallized with stark and demanding clarity. The focus of the relentless pursuit of truth now centered on two critical pillars. So the first thing we're trying to do is identify who the woman in black is that we've got in the back of a patrol car and try to figure out what the motive is for her to do what she has done to Pam. Identity and motive, these two fundamental questions have formed the unwavering bedrock of the meticulous criminal investigation, guiding the dedicated efforts of the Baldwin police to seek and ultimately deliver justice for the beloved Pamela Britt. The path forward, though undeniably fraught with emotional challenges and investigative complexities, was now definitively outlined, its initial grim pieces firmly in place, drawing them deeper into a world where unchecked obsession and calculated violence tragically converge, forever altering the peace of Baldwin. As the narrative of the investigation progressed, gaining an undeniable momentum driven by the solemn urgency of the murder, the first subtle yet crucial ripples of a tangible lead began to emanate from the crime scene, offering a tantalizing, albeit still incomplete, glimpse into the true identity of the mysterious woman and the dark undercurrents that might have propelled her heinous act. The upcoming developments promised a significant shift in focus, as investigators would soon get a possible lead on their mystery woman, a seemingly innocuous inquiry into Pamela's social circles, a standard and often routine procedural step in any death investigation, suddenly illuminated a previously unseen, yet profoundly relevant, facet of her recent personal life. A question posed to a knowledgeable source about any troubles Pamela might have encountered yielded a chilling and, initially, perplexing response that pivoted the entire investigation. I asked if she'd do anybody that Pam might have been having any kind of trouble with, and she said, "David's dead." This peculiar phrasing, "David's dead," rather than a simple denial of problems with David, immediately hinted at a complex, possibly obsessive, romantic dynamic centered around her current boyfriend. This indirect, yet powerful, suggestion instantly turned the investigative focus towards a deeply unsettling narrative leading to a potential stalker. The subsequent discovery of technological surveillance only solidified this chilling theory, confirming a clandestine, intrusive presence in David's life, and by insidious extension, Pamela's. He put a security camera up and caught footage of a woman in a coat that never shows her face, offering a ghostly, yet undeniable, early visual fragment of the elusive perpetrator, a shadowy figure moving with deliberate secrecy, betraying a deep-seated malicious intent that began subtly and escalated catastrophically. Meanwhile, even as a meticulous collection of forensic evidence continued at Pamela Britt's tragically compromised home, painstakingly documenting every detail, the immediate practical demands of law enforcement dictated the precise and secure handling of the person in custody. The first officers on the scene, having successfully apprehended the fleeing suspect, undertook the routine but crucial task of transporting her to the police headquarters. However, her steadfast refusal to cooperate, her impenetrable wall of silence, persisted even within the sterile environment of detention. She didn't want to speak, so she was placed in jail. This unyielding silence, a psychological defense mechanism as formidable as any physical barrier, left the true identity and motivations of the suspect shrouded in a profound enigma for a crucial period. And she said in jail, the woman in black remains a mystery. Her defiance underscored the considerable challenges inherent in extracting the truth from A, perpetrator so determined to conceal it, forcing the investigators to rely on ingenuity, deductive reasoning, and hard, objective evidence rather than direct confession. The fundamental question of who she truly was hung heavy in the air, a silent but persistent demand for identification that drove the subsequent, painstaking investigative efforts and propelled the tireless pursuit of justice forward. Despite the persistent, uncooperative nature of their detainee, the methodical and painstaking work back at the grim crime scene eventually yielded a truly critical breakthrough among Pamela's personal effects, her everyday belongings now imbued with profound and tragic significance. Detectives unearthed a potent lead, a crucial thread that promised to unravel the tightly woven mystery. But back at the crime scene, detectives find a potential lead among Pam's belongings. Pam's phone was in her purse. This commonplace device, a modern conduit for human connection, and a digital repository of personal history, unexpectedly became a vital, indispensable clue. Upon meticulously reviewing its call logs, a crucial pattern emerged, a sequence of calls that immediately caught an investigator's trained eye. I looked through her call log and saw that she had been on the phone with Jenna Wade Scrivener, who is also a person that I know from growing up in Nettleton, Mississippi. This serendipitous personal connection, a familiar name from his own life within the intricately interwoven fabric of Mississippi. Communities provided an immediate, invaluable link, a piece of local knowledge that suddenly held immense investigative weight. Acting swiftly and decisively on this newfound connection, the detective promptly placed a call to Jenna, initiating a conversation that would pivot the entire investigation in a dramatic new direction. So I called her, and that's when we found out that Pam had been dating her son David Scrivener from Nettleton. The existence of Pamela's romantic relationship with David Scrivener, previously only a vague, unconfirmed suspicion, was now unequivocally confirmed, instantly setting the stage for the unfolding revelation of simmering and ultimately tragic, romantic rivalry. The first crucial pieces of this complex psychological puzzle were now firmly in place, demanding careful scrutiny and empathetic understanding from the investigative team. The conversation with Jenna Wade Scrivener proved to be even more critical than anticipated, swiftly yielding the vital lead that the detectives desperately sought to connect the burgeoning evidence of a love triangle to a potential perpetrator. Probing deeper into Pamela's recent relationships and any potential conflicts that might have arisen, the investigator posed a direct, yet open-ended question. I asked Jenna Wade Scrivener if she knew anybody that Pam might have been having any kind of trouble with or things of that nature. The response was immediate, unhesitating, and chillingly specific. And she said, yeah, David's ex-Yvonne. This name, uttered with a degree of certainty and a hint of foreboding, instantly provided a name and a compelling potential motive, shifting the initial, vague suspicions of a love triangle into a sharply focused inquiry. Jenna further elaborated on her growing unease and specific suspicions regarding Yvonne's unsettling behavior. She felt like Yvonne had been poking around their house on a couple of occasions, and that she thought that maybe that's who that was. This concrete information, delivered by a concerned relative, provided a new, clear, and highly specific direction for the investigation, transforming abstract suspicions into a focused inquiry into a specific individual, armed with this critical piece of intelligence. The solemn imperative for the investigative team became starkly clear. Investigators must determine if Yvonne was jealous and decided to get rid of the competition. The psychological undercurrent of rivalry, rooted deeply in romantic possession and potentially manifesting in violent, eliminating intent, now held center stage, demanding rigorous examination to either confirm or refute Yvonne's potential, terrifying involvement in Pamela's tragic murder. The puzzle was becoming clearer, but its complexities, particularly the human emotions driving them, were only just beginning to truly emerge. To thoroughly comprehend the full dynamic of Pamela's relationship with David Scribner and, more pressingly, to meticulously explore the potential animosity with his ex-girlfriend, Yvonne. The police turned to Pam's immediate family, seeking vital insight from her daughter. The devastating news of her mother's death had, as tragically expected, delivered an immeasurable, shattering blow to the family. Me and my husband were at the eye clinic. When I got home, I had a phone call from the Baldwin Police Department. The stark, jarring transition from the mundane, routine fabric of daily life to profound, unimaginable horror of a family tragedy was instantaneous and brutal, a sudden immersion into a nightmare. I called the police, and they said they would be out to our house, and they showed up and they told me that my mom had passed. The official confirmation, delivered with solemn, unwavering gravity, plunged her into a disorienting, suffocating haze of overwhelming grief and profound disbelief. I didn't understand. Everything gets a little foggy after that. This poignant description of reality becoming indistinct and surreal under the immense weight of sudden, violent loss, eloquently captured the profound psychological shock and numbing agony of such an unbearable revelation. The sheer intensity of the family's suffering was amplified by her sister's visceral, uncontrolled reaction, an outpouring of raw, unfiltered agony. When I first heard that my mother was murdered, I was at work. My sister calls me and is in a panic, just screaming that she's dead. She's dead. The primal, guttural cries of her sister echoed the terror and shock for all who heard it. A sound of pure, unadulterated anguish. For Pam's daughter, the inexplicable brutality of the murder, its very nature, was particularly incomprehensible, an act that defied all rational understanding. I think I just weren't just kind of smelling. It was a shot. I really didn't know who could do something like that. The initial shock, the overwhelming disbelief that someone could inflict such a heinous and unspeakable act on her kind and deeply beloved mother, underscored the inherent, incomprehensible evil of the crime, demanding justice and comprehension. While Robin, still immersed in her profound and paralyzing grief, was unable to offer specific, first-hand details about Yvonne or any direct animosity Pamela might have experienced with her, she nonetheless articulated a poignant and deeply unsettling lack of surprise at her mother's tragic death might, indeed, be fatally linked to her most recent romantic entanglement. Her assessment of Pamela's romantic history, shared with a poignant blend of enduring love and a weary, knowing observation, provided a crucial psychological lens through which the investigators could understand potential vulnerabilities within Pamela's patterns of choice. My mother had the worst taste in men, absolute worst. This raw, heartfelt, yet painfully truthful statement from a loving daughter, conveyed with an undeniable sense of familial resignation, highlighted a recurring pattern of problematic relationships that had, sadly, characterized a significant portion of Pamela's romantic journey, thereby inadvertently placing her in complicated and sometimes perilous situations, setting a stage for potential conflict and heartbreak. Robin further elaborated, with a deep sense of empathetic understanding, that her mother, in a moment of profound vulnerability and an acute yearning for solace and connection, had seemingly rushed into a relationship with David after a string of family tragedies. These recent, successive losses had left Pamela emotionally raw, deeply bruised, and desperately searching for comfort and an anchor in the storm of her grief, perhaps making her more susceptible to a quick, yet potentially unstable, bond with David. The brutal cascade of sorrows that had recently afflicted their family painted a poignant and heartbreaking picture of Pamela's delicate emotional state in the period immediately preceding her meeting with David. My brother had just lost his son in July. He had drowned in a swimming pool. This unimaginable tragedy, the senseless loss of a cherished grandchild, would have been a devastating, soul-crushing blow for Pamela, an experience that alters one irrevocably. Then we turned around and had my uncle, who was my mother's brother, pass away in November. A second, successive wave of profound grief, compounding the already immense burden of sorrow, enveloped the family, leaving Pamela even more emotionally exposed. It was amidst this harrowing landscape of pervasive loss and unaddressed pain that Pamela, desperately seeking an emotional anchor and a measure of comfort, knew my mother was hurting from all of this, so she got on a dating website, and she found this guy, David Scribner. Her entry into the impersonal, yet deceptively alluring world of online dating, driven by an acute sense of personal pain and a profound longing for companionship, ironically exposed her to unforeseen and ultimately catastrophic dangers, setting in motion a tragic sequence of events that would inexorably lead to her untimely and violent demise. The universal human desire for solace and connection, when combined with a specific pattern of relationship choices and profound emotional vulnerability, can sometimes lead to unforeseen, devastating, and deeply unjust consequences. As Robin continued her sorrowful account, she detailed an alarming escalation of events, a series of profoundly unsettling incidents that began soon after Pam and David started dating. 1 month before her murder, these were not mere random occurrences but chilling precursors, subtle intrusions that laid the groundwork for the ultimate tragedy. My mother had said that she had gotten her car one time, and there was a pile of rocks that was placed in weird positioning in her floorboard. This seemingly innocuous act, the deliberate and unusual placement of mundane stones in such an intimate and private space as a car, carried a distinctly sinister undertone. It hinted at a deliberate violation, a psychological intrusion that spoke volumes of clandestine access, unsettling surveillance, and a disturbing predatory watchfulness that chipped away at Pam's sense of security. This disquieting pattern of strange occurrences, of objects found out of place, seemed to be specifically concentrated at David's home in Nettleton, drawing a geographical focus to the nascent stalking. The growing sense of unease, both for Pam and David, ultimately prompted them to take proactive, albeit ultimately insufficient, measures to document and deter whoever was responsible for these unsettling intrusions. They put a security camera up and caught footage of a woman in a coat that never shows her face, but you could see her going to the car and reaching under and getting something out from under the car. This blurry, anonymous footage, while not revealing a clear identity, nonetheless irrefutably captured the unmistakable presence of a clandestine stalker, a shadowy figure moving with deliberate secrecy, brazenly tampering with their vehicle under the cover of darkness. Pam herself, grappling with the sheer strangeness of the situation, confessed that she didn't know what was going on with it. Yet the escalating, unsettling intrusions caused her significant, creeping distress, compelling her to confide in those closest to her for support and guidance. She had called my sister, telling her about it. This was not merely a passing annoyance. It was a genuine source of mounting fear and anxiety, clearly disturbing Pamela's hard-won sense of peace and security, a subtle erosion of her safety that hinted at much darker intentions. David's mother, armed with an intimate understanding of her son's complex romantic history and recognizing a familiar pattern of possessiveness, quickly formed a strong suspicion as to the identity of this elusive, all-black-clad stalker. David's mother suspected that it may be David's upset ex Yvonne. This assumption, while appearing perfectly logical given Yvonne's past tumultuous relationship with David, would, as the investigation would later reveal, prove to be a critical red herring in the initial, confusing stages of the inquiry. Robin further clarified that at the time of these early, unsettling incidents in January, the true gravity of the situation was perhaps tragically underestimated by those involved. She says when this happened in January, she didn't think the matter was serious enough to bring to police. This understandable misjudgment, based on the seemingly minor nature of the early, insidious intrusions, sadly underscore the insidious and often deceptive nature of stalking behavior, which frequently begins subtly, its true menace and potential for devastating violence only becoming chillingly apparent when it tragically escalates beyond the point of no return. An additional detail about Yvonne's occupation further cemented this initial misdirection, providing a seemingly logical, yet ultimately misleading, visual link to the shadowy figure captured on camera. Yvonne worked at a restaurant where the waitresses were all black, and this particular person in the video was also wearing all black. This visual commonality, a seemingly compelling piece of circumstantial evidence, formed the bedrock of the initial understandable and widely accepted assumption, so they logically thought it was probably Yvonne. The theory, born a logical leap from limited yet convincing data, proved to be a formidable misstep in the early stages of the investigation, yet a wholly excusable one given the available information. In a community as intimately interconnected as Baldwin, where the lives of many individuals inevitably intertwine, Detective Young, drawing upon his own deep personal familiarity with local residents, vaguely recalled Yvonne from his childhood. This personal connection, a seemingly advantageous link that should have immediately confirmed the prevailing theory, became a crucial test of the early hypothesis. However, when Detective Young paid a formal visit to the jail where the mysterious woman in black was being held, a woman who continued to maintain an unwavering, stubborn silence, refusing to identify herself, a critical and truly revelatory discrepancy emerged. Detective Young, looking closely at the face of the uncooperative detainee, unequivocally stated that he does not recognize her. The woman in black was definitively, unequivocally, not the Yvonne he remembered from his past. This crucial and profoundly unsettling moment of non-recognition served as an immediate and fundamental pivot point, a seismic shift in the trajectory of the investigation. So everything leaned towards Yvonne, but we knew the woman we had in custody was not Yvonne. The initial hypothesis, however compelling and logical it had seemed at first glance, was now directly and irrevocably challenged by undeniable, objective reality. This startling revelation meant that investigators were grappling with a suddenly more complex and multi-layered scenario. They had a perpetrator in custody, yet her true identity remained stubbornly unknown and unconfirmed, and a previously suspected individual, Yvonne, who now needed to be definitively and officially ruled out through meticulous investigative processes. The path forward, no longer a single, straightforward trajectory, now branched into two absolutely essential directives. First, to definitively establish the true identity of the silent woman in black through irrefutable scientific means, and second, to methodically and comprehensively eliminate Yvonne from all suspicion, ensuring that justice would not be tragically misdirected. Now, detectives believe the woman in custody may be the woman in the video. This newly formed and now more credible hypothesis, forging a direct link between the silent detainee and the grainy, anonymous surveillance footage, guided their immediate next steps. The strategy was clear, methodical, and profoundly reliant on forensic precision. Detectives planned to use fingerprints to ID the woman in black and track down Yvonne to be certain that she wasn't involved. The undeniable scientific certainty of fingerprint analysis would cut through the fog of speculation, providing the definitive identification needed to bring absolute clarity to the case and propel the investigation forward with unwavering confidence, ensuring that the true perpetrator, and only the true perpetrator, would be held accountable. The imperative to conclusively rule out Yvonne from Pamela Britt's brutal murder investigation now became an absolute priority, demanding a direct and formal engagement. The detective, pursuing every emerging lead with unwavering diligence and precision, reached out to Yvonne, initiating a critical conversation that would ultimately serve to untangle the complex web of initial suspicion that had unfairly ensnared her. The detective, he contacted me and he said, "Yvonne, we need to tell." Yvonne's immediate reaction was a natural one, imbued with a palpable sense of apprehension and a defensive awareness of the underlying gravity of such a police summons. And I said, "About what?" Her carefully phrased question betrayed a natural caution, her mind already racing with the implications. The detective, understanding the delicate nature of the inquiry and the need to gain her trust, chose not to immediately reveal the full, grim extent of the tragedy, but focused instead on the implicit implication of the contact. He said about the smarter. Yvonne's denial, however, was swift, unwavering, and, most crucially, anchored in verifiable, objective fact. And I said, that has nothing to do with me. Her voice conveyed not the guilty, panicky defensiveness of the fleeing woman in black, but the calm, almost weary, certainty of someone who possessed an indisputable alibi. I was at work. I know for a fact I was at work. I have proof. This crucial detail, an unshakable and verifiable alibi, immediately served to definitively distinguish Yvonne from the anonymous suspect held in custody, providing a solid and undeniable basis for her eventual and unequivocal exoneration, clearing her name from the insidious shadow of suspicion that had momentarily fallen upon her. Despite the crucial advancements, several hours had now elapsed in the grim murder investigation of Pamela Britt, yet the central enigma remained steadfast. The woman in black, a silent, unyielding figure in custody, was still not talking. Her refusal to communicate, her impenetrable wall of silence, continued to be a formidable obstacle for investigators, forcing them to rely on meticulous forensic work, deductive reasoning, and investigative ingenuity, rather than a direct confession, to definitively ensure that the person they had detained was unequivocally not, in fact, Yvonne, the initially suspected romantic rival based on earlier, compelling, yet ultimately misleading theories. Detective Young, displaying the resourcefulness and community-based intuition so vital in small-town law enforcement, strategically leveraged his deep-seated connections within the community to bring Yvonne in for a thorough interview. Rather than employing an intimidating formal summons, he adopted a more approachable, accessible method of communication, social media. I got a message on Facebook, and by first I went and go in Yvonne's initial apprehension, a natural and understandable reaction to being contacted by law enforcement concerning such a grave matter, was palpable. However, Detective Young's experience in building rapport and fostering trust within the community quickly shone through. He swiftly and professionally dispelled her initial fears, skillfully creating an environment of trust and transparency essential for obtaining her full cooperation and unvarnished testimony. He said, Yvonne, if you really thought I was going to arrest you, you'd be in handcuffs right now. This reassuring and direct statement immediately lowered Yvonne's guard, allowing her to articulate her defense with undeniable clarity and deep conviction. And I said, that has nothing to do with me. I was at work. I know for a fact I was at work. I have proof. Her consistent, verifiable alibi, a solid and immutable account of her whereabouts during the crucial time of the murder, serve as an ironclad defense, definitively separating her from the crime scene on that tragic Tuesday morning and ultimately leading to her exoneration. When Detective Young, continuing his methodical and thorough interview, probed into the specifics of Yvonne's past relationship with David Scribner, she provided a clear, consistent, and unwavering timeline, revealing that their romantic connection had definitively and irrevocably concluded in the year 2013. The first 5 years me and David were together, everything was great, wonderful. I was madly in love with what I thought, she recollected, a faint, wistful echo of past affections and youthful illusions coloring her tone. However, the subsequent unraveling of their relationship had been fraught with bitter contention and profound emotional scars, culminating in a particularly painful and protracted legal chapter involving their children. According to Yvonne, it was a messy breakup, which led to custody battle over their children. This emotionally wrenching legal entanglement had brought immense personal heartache and enduring distress into her life, My girls had been taken from me in 2018. I was fighting in the court system trying to get them back. The court's subsequent, painful decision had only added to her profound distress and feelings of powerlessness. The court ruled to leave the children with David. This period clearly marked a point of deep personal struggle, emotional devastation, and significant estrangement from David, making renewed romantic jealousy, years later, a profoundly unlikely and unsustainable motive for murder, thereby further distancing her from Pamela Britt's tragic demise. Then, in the year 2019, a new and entirely unexpected romantic development in David's life unfolded, which Yvonne learned about somewhat indirectly through her children, but significantly, it wasn't Pamela Britt who had entered David's emotional and physical sphere as his new romantic interest. Instead, Yvonne definitively identified a woman named Shani Young. This new name, uttered with a degree of certainty and, undoubtedly, a lingering sense of past discomfort, now emerged as a crucial, undeniable new thread in the rapidly unraveling tapestry of their investigation, signifying a major pivot. Yvonne vividly recalled a curious and somewhat manipulative digital encounter with this new figure. I had got a message on Facebook from someone named Shani. I didn't have a clue who she was. The interaction, though virtual, quickly revealed Shani's possessive and territorial intent. And then one of my kids had told me that's Daddy's girlfriend. Yvonne acutely perceived Shani's underlying motivation for contacting her as a territorial probe, a deliberate attempt to gauge her emotional landscape. I think Shani's main reason was to fill me out to make sure that I didn't have feelings for David, and that I didn't want David back, to which Yvonne had given an unequivocal and emphatic response. And I let her know real quick I'm done with him. Her clear, decisive dismissal of any lingering romantic interest in David painted a convincing picture of emotional detachment rather than smoldering resentment or seething jealousy, further solidifying her non-involvement in Pamela's tragic murder. With Yvonne's credible, independently verifiable alibi and her demonstrably clear disinterest in rekindling a relationship, with David now firmly and unequivocally established, detectives made a decisive shift in their investigative focus. They were now compelled to consider the possibility that Shani might have had an axe to grind, with Pam as well, viewing Pamela as yet another rival, another obstacle in her relentless and pathological pursuit of David. This crucial redirection of focus, a testament to methodical, adaptive, and logical nature of modern detective work, was absolutely essential for pursuing the truth. After confirming her alibi, detectives conclude that Yvonne was not involved in Pamela's murder. The path toward achieving justice for Pamela Britt now lay firmly and squarely in the direction of David Scribner's other, more recent and undeniably more problematic ex-girlfriend, Shani Young, a new, more compelling, and ultimately more sinister suspect, her shadow looming ever larger and more ominously over the tragic events that had transpired in the quiet, unsuspecting town of Baldwin. The complex, tangled tapestry of love, corrosive jealousy, and ultimately, fatal obsession was slowly, meticulously being unraveled, inch by agonizing inch, as the investigation relentlessly drew closer to its dark, undeniable truth. The intricate web of relationships surrounding David Scribner now became the central focus of the investigation. Before detectives could formally approach David to obtain his statement and further clarify the convoluted timeline of his romantic entanglements, a pivotal, unsolicited piece of communication arrived, accelerating the unfolding drama. I got a Facebook message from David Scribner, and he asked that I call him as soon as I could, so I did. This proactive outreach from David, likely driven by his own mounting anxieties, growing suspicions, and a desperate desire for clarity in the face of the unfolding tragedy, was a fortuitous and highly valuable development for the diligent detectives. His spontaneous contact, bypassing traditional channels, showcased how quickly vital information and profound concern can travel through modern digital networks during a crisis. David wasted no time, immediately relaying his deep-seated and profoundly unsettling concerns to the waiting detectives. He disclosed that he had, through the tight-knit grapevine of their small community, already heard about someone being held in custody for Pam's murder, like Yvonne before him. David himself now strongly suspected that the person in custody might be his ex-girlfriend, Shawnee. His fears, David explained, were rooted in concrete. Alarming observations about Shawnee's recent behavior and her physical location, particularly on the fateful day of Pamela's murder. He provided crucial details, revealing that Shawnee had been staying with her cousin, Lee and Mann. The most critical piece of information revolved around Shawnee's sudden, unexplained absence and subsequent non-return on the very morning of Pamela Britt's death. She reached out to David, and on that particular morning had left sometime between 3 and 6 a.m. in her car under the pretense of going to work at a restaurant local in Corinth, Mississippi. This fabricated alibi, the meticulously constructed cover story for her early morning departure, quickly began to unravel as David further revealed her actual whereabouts, or rather, her damning lack thereof. But at this particular time had not returned, and when Leanne started doing some investigating, she had not been at work at all that day. The stark, undeniable discrepancy between Shawnee's stated intentions for her early morning departure and her actual, confirmed actions, her utter absence from her purported workplace, serve as a blaring, unequivocal alarm, strongly and chillingly linking her to the exact scene and timing of Pamela's tragic murder. It was an alibi that collapsed under its own weight, exposing the deliberate deception at its core. According to David's grim recounting, Shawnee had demonstrably never genuinely recovered from the painful and decisive dissolution of their relationship, an event that had occurred just prior to his meeting Pam in 2018. This enduring inability to move on, to accept the end of their brief connection, had festered and metastasized within Shawnee's mind, transforming into a corrosive, pathological, and unhealthy obsession. He painted a clear and deeply troubling picture of Shawnee's consuming preoccupation, revealing to investigators that she was continuously talking with Lee and about David and Pam's relationship. This incessant, one-sided conversation, centered exclusively on David and his new life with Pamela Britt, spoke volumes about the pathological intensity of Shawnee's fixation, an obsession that was clearly spiraling beyond all rational control, fueled by unrequited desire and simmering resentment. With these chilling and highly relevant revelations from David, indicating a clear trajectory of escalating obsession and calculated deception, a full 24 hours into the investigation, the path forward for the detectives became unequivocally clear and profoundly urgent. They now possessed sufficient and compelling reason to formally summon Lee and Mann, Shawnee's cousin, for an official interview, recognizing her as a pivotal, indeed indispensable, witness who could shed critical light on Shawnee's increasingly alarming and violent behavior. The expectation was that Lee, and having witnessed Shawnee's gradual descent into pathological obsession, would hold the key to understanding the sinister shifts in Shawnee's psyche and her escalating plans. Leanne, however, was not unaware of the unfolding tragedy that had gripped their community. She arrived at the police station acknowledging that she's already heard about Pam's murder, her presence likely spurred by a growing, terrifying dread and perhaps a burgeoning, horrifying realization of her cousin Shawnee's direct culpability. She was notably accompanied by her steadfast friend Beth Reed, whose silent presence, a testament to moral support and shared apprehension, underscored the immense gravity and emotional weight of the situation. Their impending, combined testimony, delivered with courage and sorrow, promised to finally unlock the complete, true narrative behind Pamela Britt's tragic death, definitively exposing the twisted, malevolent psychology of her ruthless murderer. The The complex tapestry of love, raw jealousy, and fatal obsession was slowly, meticulously being unraveled, thread by agonizing thread, as the investigation drew inexorably closer to its dark and undeniable truth, exposing the profound humanistic meaning embedded in the tireless pursuit of justice. Shawnee Val Young's formative years in Tupelo, Mississippi, as meticulously pieced together through the poignant recollections of those closest to her, presented a complex and deeply troubling psychological portrait, steeped in a narrative of unbridled self-absorption and a profound, pervasive difficulty in forming healthy, empathetic relationships. Despite the common relational dynamics of being one of three sisters, Shawnee harbored a pathological and relentless need to be always the center of attention. This deeply ingrained personality trait, a core component of her nascent narcissism, manifested strikingly early in her life. We were never close growing up. She was very spoiled. This early parental indulgence, rather than fostering empathy, seemed instead to tragically cultivate an overwhelming sense of entitlement and a pronounced, debilitating inability to engage constructively or empathetically with others, particularly her siblings. The competitive environment of youth, often exacerbated by participation in activities like pageants, seemed to further sharpen her inherent tendencies towards egocentricity, fostering a dangerous perception that her desires and needs inherently superseded those of everyone else around her, leading to interpersonal difficulties that echoed later in her adult life. Me and Shawnee and my other sister, we'd done pageants, and she didn't play well with others. She always thought she was entitled to something more. Her disposition during childhood was, to those who witnessed it, disturbingly clear and consistently negative. Shawnee was pretty mean back then. This meanness, far from being a fleeting, childish phase, manifested itself in patterns of cruel, manipulative behaviors directed towards her own siblings, providing a chillingly consistent precursor to the darker, more malevolent aspects of her adult personality and her capacity for profound, calculated aggression. My brother and my sister both. Shawnee would beat them and blame them for stuff that she had done. Cruel. This consistent, early pattern of aggressive behavior, deliberate manipulation, and unapologetic blame deflection, observed tragically in her earliest years, underscore a profound and deeply ingrained lack of accountability and empathy, qualities that would later tragically define her adult life and tragically manifest in her horrifying capacity for ruthless violence and murder. As Shawnee transitioned into the tumultuous complexities of adulthood, her personal narrative continued its turbulent and unsettling trajectory, marked by instability and a relentless search for external validation and provision. She eventually moved to New York and got married, ostensibly seeking a fresh start, perhaps, or a new, pristine canvas upon which to paint a different, more settled life. However, by the year 2017, she had, with a sense of inevitability, returned to her roots in Mississippi, her life significantly altered and demonstrably more complicated than before. She returned a single mother with children by 3 different men, a testament to a turbulent, often fractured romantic history characterized by a series of broken relationships and multiple family formations, hinting at an underlying inability to sustain stable, healthy bonds. And it was swiftly upon her return to Mississippi that, according to the keen and often cynical observations of both Lee and Beth, she'd already found her next provider. This profoundly telling, yet tragically cynical, observation, starkly devoid of romantic pretense, framed her approach to romantic relationships as primarily transactional, indicating a deeply ingrained pattern of seeking out individuals who could offer her not true, emotional connection, but rather immediate financial or emotional stability and provision rather than genuine, reciprocal love. Her entry into David Scribner's life, emblematic of her transactional approach, was facilitated by modern technology, yet rooted in an ancient, primal